Today we're ranking the top 50 running backs into tiers. I do a lot of drafts. I'm drafting at least 6 drafts a day on Underdog Fantasy. I'm looking at these players as batches. Tiers work best for me because I'm pivoting and diversifying between these players. When I'm ranking these players, to help you guys, I'm looking at basic PPR fantasy leagues. So the rankings are going to be fluid in the tiers. So in those tiers, pick the guys you like best. But this is going to be a good guide for you. But before you dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now because we're looking at these players every day. We're going to start ranking these players to help you out for your drafts. We'll have wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks overall, and then we'll keep redoing them until fantasy football draft season is over. You need to click that subscribe button. In season, we cover the waiver wire every day. We go deep on players. We cover the waiver wire and the batch of players, the wide receivers, the running backs, the hits, the misses, the up-and-coming trends, the guys who are hiding on the waiver wire for those deeper leagues. It's all going to be right here. Click that button. Stop missing out. But we're going to start off with our stud tier, our S tier, and our first running backs off the board for that tier. There's just 3 of them, and I think you know who they are. Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, and Breece Hall, and I think they're all good to go. I think they're all locks. Christian McCaffrey going to start off with that injury. I'm not too worried about him. He's also has an ADP of the 101 first player off the board, and that's still up there on Underdog, so the market's saying, hey, that's okay. On top of that, he is consistent, and he can give you top-tier performances, 30-point weeks on any given Sunday. The running back I like best out cost between the 3 is Bijan Robinson. I think he is at the state where he can go off. We had his rookie season. We had his rookie ramp-up. We have a new coaching staff. He's going to be used tremendously in the passing game. We're explosive. He's a generational prospect coming out of high school and coming out of college. We've been waiting for this. It's time for Bijan Robinson. He's going to get the workload. He is going to go off this year as long as he's healthy on the field. There's not going to be any weird headache games where he comes up missing due to Arthur Smith. And then Breece Hall's looking good. With Aaron Rodgers and company, I look for him to be using the passing game a lot like he did last year. But Aaron Rodgers is looking at him for checkdowns and everything else. He's very explosive, good up the gut. I like him too. I believe he has RB1 upside as well, like the RB1 upside. And that's why I got him in that S tier. All 3 of these guys has the upside to hit it. But now let's go to the A tier. The next batch of running backs. And this is kind of a big batch. And I am diversifying between these running backs because of the player pool, depending on the wide receivers, and also depending on how many shares I have of that running back. I'm drafting 6 teams a day, and I'm going to tell you how I'm drafting, not how I think player per player, player good, player bad, because honestly, things could be different in your draft. Things are different from me day to day when I'm drafting, and that's just how it is. But A tier, Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs. Those are the top 3 in ADP right now. Devon A-Chain as well. He is the upside play. That's why I put him in the middle, because he is the upside play. If I'm looking for something more steady, Eddie, Kyren Williams, Derrick Henry, Isaiah Pacheco, and everybody in this tier I like. I like Derrick Henry at cost, and I like Isaiah Pacheco the most because he's the cheapest of the batch. I like Kyren Williams as well because I do not think he's going to lose much workload. He should lose some, but he's going to get workload until the wheels fall off, and then we're going to see Blake Corum step in. Kyren Williams will be fantasy relevant more than that, and will get a lot of opportunities cheap for the cost. Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, tremendous talents with injury history. Both will be used in the passing game. Jonathan Taylor's very explosive. Saquon Barkley on an explosive Eagles offense. This whole batch of players is a little bit dicey due to age, injury history, and everything else. You look at Derrick Henry, though, with the Ravens. That is the perfect spot for him. A run-first offense that now has their explosive running back, and they're going to run the offense through him. Going to our next tier, Tier B, and this batch is very similar to Tier A, and I like them just as much, and I might pivot to them more if I'm still slamming wide receivers. Travis Etienne, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Rachaad White. The 2 running backs I've been talking the most out of this tier, and maybe all of the running backs in these first 3 tiers, Joe Mixon, Rachaad White. If I can stack those guys while slamming a couple elite wide receivers in the start of my draft, I feel like I'm good to go. Joe Mixon's with the Texans, a fast-paced offense. He's going to get similar numbers compared to where he was at Cincinnati. Similar work rate and everything else. Going to be using the passing game. Rachaad White, good in the passing game, explosive, getting a lot of touches, over 15 touches per game last year. I like Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. They're going to use him until the wheels fall off. James Cook, I'm a little iffy about, and usually I'm only looking his way if I feel iffy about the wide receivers. And then Travis Etienne is a guy I'm pivoting to when I got too much of my other guys there. But I am pivoting to Travis Etienne in a lot of cases because I'm starting to get loaded up as some of my other running backs. So I want some shares there. Gets a good opportunity share. Was high up there to start the season last year, an opportunity with touches and targets. On top of that, we got Trevor Lawrence, a good offense here, and he's going to be getting the workload here in Jacksonville. Moving on to Tier C. Very good batch of players here. This is your middle of the draft. These are your RB2s, potentially RB3s, depending on your build. Maybe your RB1s if you're going 0 RB light. But a guy that people are sleeping on, Raheem Mostert. But David Montgomery's getting a lot of rise as well in the rankings. Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Zamir White, Kenneth Walker, and James Conner. My favorite to draft out of this batch is Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones. Those are my favorite in the middle rounds. Alvin Kamara due to his use in the passing game. Aaron Jones, because this offense is going to use him. He's going to be using the passing game, and he's at a good price point. Raheem Mostert's on a very explosive offense. He's very explosive with fantasy production. We know David Montgomery can hold it down even when Jahmyr Gibbs is on the field. And if Jahmyr Gibbs is missing time at all, David Montgomery is an RB1 locked in. Zamir White's going to get the workload and touches. That's forecasted for him, and he's a cheap option. Kenneth Walker's a little bit more expensive compared to the other running backs, but he's also very explosive. But I have him down a little bit into this tier. Some people would have him up with the tier B guys. I have him down a little bit due to Zach Charbonnet. James Conner is a good lock in the middle round. As long as he's healthy on the field, he's going to get you double-digit PPR scoring production. Moving on to Tier D now, we're looking at a big tier here. DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson, Najee Harris, Chase Brown, Jerome Ford, Zach Moss, Jonathan Brooks, Blake Corum, and Trey Benson. This tier tells some stories. We got some guys getting workload who can give you some fantasy results. On the back end, we got some upside. I love me some upside plays. So Jonathan Brooks, Blake Corum, and Trey Benson, I'm chasing them in a lot of drafts. I want at least one of those three guys in almost every league. And I know this because I'm drafting a lot of leagues. One of those three guys lately, if not the whole draft season for me, have been coming off the board for me. Jerome Ford is going to be getting workload. He can be productive with the Browns if Nick Chubb's out for some time. And I'm not betting for or against Nick Chubb. I'm watching this happen eating popcorn because he's squatting damn near 600 pounds after that injury. We'll talk about him here in a bit. Brian Robinson getting workload. Najee Harris getting workload, especially with the Warren injury. DeAndre Swift, interesting situation, interesting player, can be very efficient on the field per touch, but an injury history as well. And we got to see how the Bears offense is going to be. I am getting some shares, but he is a little bit high for my liking in ADP when I can just downplay to another running back. And when I look at these players here, Zach Moss and Chase Brown is a battle between the two. When I think about it, I'd rather chase the upside and go with Chase Brown. Hopefully I hit a league winner, but I will pivot to Zach Moss here and there. He's very dependable. Points per game when he's on the field getting workload. We will know more about this offense probably week one. So you're going to have to just gamble on one of these running backs. Maybe take the cheaper one. Chase Brown has more upside. I'll chase the Brown, see if I can get that upside to cash in. Moving on to the next tier, I have it labeled as D2. Very similar to D, and some of these guys are just moving up and down with these two tiers. So I just have them pretty much the same tier. Nick Chubb leads the way here, and I'm not betting against him. I'm always going to be looking his way. I do have him rostered in some leagues as, let's see what happens, but not in all of them and not a lot of them because I know he's coming back from that knee injury, but it's hard to bet against Nick Chubb, so I do have a couple chips there. Ramondre Stevenson got a contract. He's going to be featured in this offense. I know they got Antonio Gibson, but they're going to feature him in this offense because he's very dependable in the passing game. Pass blocking, between the tackles, he can get a lot of targets. He is going to be featured in this offense. Javonte Williams is going to start off as a starter getting the workload. Will it finish the season that way? Probably not. But Javonte Williams is the starting running back, so he will get workload. Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears. We're just watching the touches between them. Tony Pollard, I'm drafting a little bit more due to the explosiveness. Jaylen Warren went down a little bit, but I have D and D2 together as tiers, so he's not really going down that much. But due to recent news of the injury history, I don't want injured players on my team to start off the season, but I will catch him if he's falling at a discount. But I have to get more drafts to figure that out to see where I'm going to get him at. Austin Eckler, if he's dust, it's rust. But if it's not dusty with him, upside for days and he can put up points, that could be a sneaky play in double-digit rounds. Gus Edwards is very dependable. Very dependable. I see he's back there in the end of the tier, but he's a guy that I'm drafting ahead of Austin Eckler. Right now, probably ahead of Jaylen Warren. Up there around Javonte Williams, Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard, just diversifying between the two. Actually drafting, diversifying between those guys. Zach Charbonnet's in the mix. Chuba Hubbard's a little bit later, but what I like about him is that I think if Jonathan Brooks is on the pup to start the season, or if not getting workload, Chuba Hubbard's going to be productive, and you can catch some production at the cheat. Round 12, round 11, round 13, round 14 draft capital in your league, and it can get you by. You can be jacked up a wide receiver with just one good running back, and then you can figure it out with your upside plays at running back. I like Tier E the best. Tier E is very fun. We're going to start off with our stable guys. Devin Singletary, Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle. We're watching to see how things play out with the touches and everything else. Devin Singletary is your most stable option in this tier. He's pretty much a D2 guy, should be up there. But the back end is what I care about here. Jalen Wright, 4.3 speed with the Dolphins. Ray Davis looking good in preseason. Will be the RB1B for the Buffalo Bills. Getting touches will get worked in throughout the season. Braylon Allen, the legit RB2 for the Jets. Something happens to Breece Hall. Next man up, J.K. Dobbins. 14th round draft pick. If he's back, he's back. If he's dust, you'll know very quick. You can turn and burn him. Then you can instantly work the waiver wire. That's what I like about him. But if he's back, he's going to be back in a big way. If not, cut him. Cut him very quickly. But what I like about Tier E, that back end there with the upside plays, I am taking a lot of those guys. I'm taking a lot of those guys over some of the guys in Tier D even due to the upside. But I'm also playing the ADP game, so I know I can get Austin Eckler, wait a couple rounds, and get Ray Davis. I know I can get Gus Edwards, wait a few rounds, get Braylon Allen. I know I can get Tyjae Spears, wait a few rounds, get Jalen Wright. But I want one of those three running backs between Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, and Braylon Allen. I want one of those three running backs as a stash on the back end. So I want one of those three expensive stashes in Tier D. Jonathan Brooks, Blake Corum, Trey Benson. And then I want to come around and get Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, and Braylon Allen. But if that doesn't happen, we go to Tier G. And we got Marshawn Lloyd, Khalil Herbert, Ty Chandler, all upside plays. DeAndre Swift has an injury history. Khalil Herbert could come back in a big way. He can be productive. He also has an injury history. Marshawn Lloyd's on the mid from an injury. Could start off slow, but good size, adjust athleticism, a rookie and unknown, an upside lottery ticket stash. But I'm starting him off a little bit lower. I had him higher on the list prior to the injury because you know what? He's starting off nicked up. That's going to start off slow. You can always pick him up off waivers. And then Ty Chandler, 4.3 speed. Might be getting some opportunities if something happens to Aaron Jones. Moving on to Tier H, our final tier here. And honestly, anybody else who's not listed here, you can throw in here. Tyler Algier, Kendre Miller, Eric Gray, Tyrone Tracy, Jaleel McLaughlin, Rashawn Johnson. Kendre Miller is dying right now due to an injury in the rankings and in the ADP. He had round 10 ADP a few weeks ago. Now it's like round 18 almost. He's an afterthought. You might be picking him off waivers if something happens to the running backs. But right now, he's a stash, and it really depends on how deep your league is. Jaleel McLaughlin should be like Tier G, Tier E now that I think about it. That's why you need to listen to me and not stare at the pictures, because he's going to get workload with Javonte Williams. He's going to be a piece in the offense, but maybe not enough to give you the upside of an RB1 week in and week out, even if he does become the guy there due to default due to injuries. Rashawn Johnson, just an upside play. You're watching the Giants running backs. Tyrone Tracy went down with an injury a few days ago, but it looks like he'll be back soon. Tyler Algier, if something happens to Bijan, Audric Estime, who's not listed, could be a wild card down the line in season that you may want to stash if something happens to Javonte or Jaleel McLaughlin, because he's got some upside. That's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit lower on Jaleel McLaughlin and a little bit lower on Javonte Williams as well, because Audric Estime, tremendous running back prospect, could step in and steal some of the workload, is a guy that you should have as a stash player. But when I look at these running backs, I'm diversifying from them. I'm picking my spots here. I'm going after the wide receivers early. I'm trying to make sure I'm built at wide receiver early in my drafts. Middle of the draft, I'm really pounding running back. End of the draft, I'm really pounding running back. And I'm stacked up with elite wide receivers, maybe a good running back mixed in with there. Really depends on how the draft flows. But honestly, I'm picking my poison, picking my spots. The middle round, 6th round, 7th round, 8th round is where I'm really looking at the running back position. I feel like my team can really be built there, have a lot of depth, and will be in a strategic spot to win my league if I can win out in the middle rounds. The top of the draft, it's really just getting one of those stud running backs, maybe 2 of them, and hoping they don't get hurt throughout the year so we can enjoy the top tier production. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.